basic income tax exemption limit in India is currently 2.5 lakh rupees annually. Further, under the Section 87A of the Income Tax Act of 1961, an individual with an annual taxable income of up to 5 lakh rupees is eligible for an income tax rebate of 12,500 rupees. This provision is available both under the old and the new income tax regimes, which essentially means that individuals with a net taxable income of up to 5 lakh rupees, those individuals are entirely exempt from income tax. But experts are now asking the central government to increase the basic exemption limit from 2.5 lakh to 5 lakh rupees in the upcoming budget. They say it's going to boost consumption. It's going to further push the economy. Amidst the global slowdown that we are talking about, it will push the economy up. Feroz Aziz is Deputy CEO at Anand Rathi Private Wealth Management. He's joining us on the show, along with CA Naveen Wadhwa. He is DGM at Taxman. Feroz, currently this basic income tax exemption, like I was telling our viewers, that limit is 2.5 lakh rupees for individual taxpayers under both the old and the new income tax regimes. And under 87A, you get up to 5 lakh rupees, that is eligible for an income tax rebate of 12,500 rupees. Now, to ask you directly, what changes would you like to see in the basic exemption limit? Do you think raising the basic limit would give a boost to the economy? Would that happen?
Yes, I think so, Vikram, for sure. Because what happens is, I think seldom does the government have that kind of leeway to make such dramatic changes. For example, a 2.5 lakh limit becoming a 5 lakh limit is a reasonable change, especially given the fact that those haven't changed from 2014, point one. Point two, I think this is the year where there is tax collection significantly more than what's been anticipated. The revenue collection, which was anticipated in the budget which went by last year, was 22.16 lakh crore. And I think we've penetrated significantly, so much so that there could be 3 lakh crore or more than the budget, both on the direct and indirect tax collection. So coming back to your question, pointed one, will that boost the economy? The answer is a big yes. I think inflation is not so much of a problem in India that this could result in an inflation spike, which is a global concern. Like US, quite a few people in the pandemic got $2,000, $3,000 in their bank account straight, which boosted the economy to the other extreme that inflation became out of hand. So that also is not a problem. So I think it will definitely boost consumption. And I think rural consumption, which has suffered immensely after the pandemic, is showing initial signs of recovery. And this change could catalyze the rural consumption, which seems to be in the doldrums for the last few years.
Mr. Wadhwa, do you agree with what Feroz is saying? The real income of thousands of middle-class earners has taken a big hit in the last couple of years because of the pandemic, because of the subsequent high prices that we've been dealing with. Now, the focus of the government is, yes, on increasing the tax net because they haven't changed the slabs since 2014. What should, according to you, the approach of the finance minister be when it comes to tax slabs now?
I do agree. As a taxpayer, I'll go with Feroz, and I also wish there should be an increase in the slab rate. But as a tax professional, I see a very less chance of any increasing the tax slabs. And I have got 2-3 reasons why government is not going to do it. So the number one is the fiscal deficit, which is already above 6.4%. So the government is not in the mood to spend more by reducing the tax rates. And basically the government follows the counter-cyclical fiscal policy, wherein during the bad time, government increases its spending, and during the good time, it increases the tax rate so that it can add some additional revenue to the kitty. So because of that reason, during the COVID time, government has already spent a lot of money for the economic recovery. But I don't think so government has got that much of levy to reduce further the tax rates. That's reason number one. Reason number two, since this is the last full budget before the next general elections comes in, as if we see in 2019, during the interim budget, the government changed some tax rates. The 87A relief was increased. So I don't see much changes this year, but definitely I believe that the next interim budget would have more exciting things to talk about, and probably the government can tweak some tax rates. So this is the reason. And the last one is, if you look at the budgeted capital expenditure, which has already seen a 14% surge in the budgeted capital expenditure, and government would need money for that. So they are not going to do a remarkable changes in the tax rates.
So when you consider the pros and cons that the government would consider, Feroz, when it comes to changing the tax slabs, as it were, which I mentioned hasn't changed since 2014, at this crucial point in our economy where we stand right now, with the after effects of the pandemic, with inflation before us, you said that's not too much of a concern right now. With all those factors, what would the finance minister consider when deciding on whether to tweak the tax slabs or not?
See, the fact that we've collected 14,65,000 crores of taxes, 26% higher on the direct taxes, 27% higher on the indirect taxes year on year, which is a very good tax collection. You're looking at a penetration on the 22.16, which was the predicted or anticipated revenue collection. We have penetrated almost about 58, 59% or even more, which is not the case in normal years. So I think today you have the leeway. Of course, fiscal deficit is a concern, like Lavin Saab said, there is a concern, but it's very interesting to see only 47% of the revenue expenditure has happened in 7 months. Generally, by the 7 months passing, which is the latest data we had, you were generally 55% penetrated into the expenditure budget. We are just 46%. So which means that there is fiscal prudence. Of course, with the kind of government spending, your deficits are going to be higher. And that's what a country like ours should do, invest in infrastructure and have negative or a fiscal deficit situation. And I think that's not very normal for a growth economy like ours. I think today we have the leeway. That's point one. And I think the finance minister will take it seriously. The second, I think the finance minister should take very seriously is the flight of HNIs moving from India outside. The estimate is about 9 lakh people have moved out because of the taxation, especially the surcharge, which is 37%, which makes income tax or even tax on short-term capital gains to 42.744. There are quite a few people are taking citizenships in Dubai and Singapore, where the dual taxation treaty exempt them from paying taxes on several immovable property in India. So I think that is creating a lot of tax losses. I'm sure, like Nirmala Sitharaman ma'am had said, when she brought the surcharge, she will reconsider it in the 75th year of independence, the surcharge. I hope she revisits that as per the subtle mention during the launch of the surcharge.
Well, that is the hope. But Mr. Wadhwa, when you consider the old regime, it allows tax-saving benefits under Section 80C, 80D, 24 and so on, which is still available as an option for taxpayers. Now, as far as exemptions and tax-saving benefits go, what's your stand? What are you expecting on these fronts from the budget this time?
Yeah, so that's one area where I am quite confident that the government should make some changes and could make some changes. This regime was introduced around 2 years back, and around more than a dozen deduction and exemptions were withdrawn if you want to go with the new regime. And in spite of that, there are not much takers of the new regime. And then the answer is very simple: because of certain deductions, common deductions and exemptions. As an individual taxpayer, I generally claim, and being a resident person, I generally claim. So basically, these are my contribution to insurance policies, my children education fees, my repayment of housing loans, the standard deductions. All these deductions and exemptions are not available in the new tax regime. And they're just 10 or 12% takers of the new regime, and that too from the non-residents. So because they don't have much of these deductions and exemptions to claim in India. So basically, they are the more beneficiary. So if government is really keen in simplifying the tax structure, because the current tax structure is very, very complex. As an individual taxpayer, not from the tax background, it becomes very difficult for any taxpayer to understand these complex web of deduction and exemption. Because of that, a committee a few years back has also recommended to remove all this deduction and exemption, but it was not possible to do away overnight. So that's why the government is trying to removing the deduction and exemption in phase manner. So the first phase was introduced by the new tax regime, and the government, if really want people to come into the new regime, they should either reduce the tax rate. The higher tax rate is still 30%. So that tax rate should apply at least when the income exceeds 20 lakh rupees. The current limit is 15 lakh rupees. That's number one. Number two is allow at least 80C deduction because it will help India to penetrate more Indian people to penetrate, take more and more insurances. So currently the penetration rate is around 2.9% of life insurance policies. So if the government reconsiders this decision to allow ATC deduction, at least for insurance policies and medical insurance policies, that is ATD, then I believe it would be, an attractive regime to offer.